we all have a story.
Absolutely.
And if we learn to me, it's a beautiful thing that God will do with a broken life if you give him all the pieces. And to see the way that he is such a redeemer. Yeah. He wastes nothing. I was born on the west coast of Scotland, a small fishing town on the west coast, to a mum and dad who both loved Jesus, which wouldn't be unusual in many American cities, but in Scotland, less than 2% of our population even went to church. So to have a mum and dad who loved Jesus was such a gift. But when I was only 5, my father had a massive cerebral hemorrhage, and it changed his personality. And he became, instead of being this loving, fun dad, he became an angry, confused, and ultimately violent stranger. And it came down one day to my father attempting to take my life, but my mum intervened, and he was taken off to what was called back then our local lunatic asylum. Be like a psych hospital these days. And he managed to escape from there, and he committed suicide, took his own life in the river behind the hospital.
So all these ideas that Christian communicators have had the easy life. Yeah.
You know, I honestly think, and I know this from your life, from so many authors that I love to read and that I connect with. It's the same as when I read the Psalms from David, that you connect with, because those who have had their hearts broken know that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit.
I would imagine a lot of people listening right now are saying, I needed that word.
Yeah.
I needed that word. Yeah. You know, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for a redemption story in your life. I love redemption stories.
Me too. Me too.
What was intended as evil, God used for good.
And I think it's the difference between wounds and scars.
Okay.
You know, wounds are fresh.
Yeah.
And when your wounds are fresh, you're not really able to minister to others.
Yes, exactly right.
But when it's a scar,
yeah,
then it's like 2 Corinthians 1, we can comfort one another with the same comfort with which we've been comforted. Right. Scars are proof that God heals.
You talk about scars in this book, which we are here, at least in part, to discuss. This terrific book, It's Okay Not to Be Okay. And you talk about the beauty and the value and the importance of scars. Can you unpack that just a little bit?
Well, you know, so often we try and hide our weakness or our brokenness from one another, as if somehow that disqualifies us. But I've found that it's usually the very things that have wounded us when lifted into the presence of God and he touches them, that he will then use in the lives of others. If Christ chose to rise from the grave with the marks of crucifixion, why would we be ashamed of our scars? To me, that's one of the ways that we can minister to one another. You know, we've all got different stories. Mine is I struggle with mental illness. I've been diagnosed with clinical depression. So I take medication every day. And initially I thought, well, I'm never going to tell anyone that because, you know, they're just going to think I'm talking to some imaginary dog and drooling on myself. But I rarely do that. Rarely. But to be able to say to others, you know what? This isn't your spiritual life, it's your brain chemistry. And there's help available, and God is with you. And to be a little further down the road and look back and say, you know what? The good news is Jesus is here. Yeah. So that's, to me, why God uses our scars.
He's in your story, right?
Yeah.
He's in your story. Just 2 or 3 days ago, we've been talking about travel. I've been traveling a lot. I had one day, I live in San Antonio, as you know, and I had one day to kind of be home and get everything done. And so I was out of clean shirts. And so I took the shirts over to a cleaner, and there was a new manager there. And I said, who are you? I've never seen you here before. And he told me, he said, I recognize you. You're that pastor from down the street. And our church is just right down Interstate 10 from the cleaners. He said, I became a Christian in prison. I said, really? I said, tell me your story. He said that he spent 7 years in prison for breaking and entering. But the girl he was dating quoted verses to him. This is all before he went to prison. She was always quoting verses to him. When he was sent to prison, he said those verses came up inside him like a life, like it just gave him life. And he gave his heart to Christ. And what made me think of that story is he said, and now I'm every Thursday night in the prison teaching those men that their lives are going to have a story. And I said, look at that. What was intended for evil was used for good. So he's using his scar I mean, he's not hiding it.
Yeah.
And he's using it so we can take those, I don't know, those challenges that come our way.
But that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about everybody who's watching, everybody here in our studio audience, we all have a story.
Absolutely.
And if we learn to me, it's a beautiful thing that God will do with a broken life if you give him all the pieces. And to see the way that he is such a redeemer. He wastes nothing.
Wastes nothing.